Hello, all my friends out there in YouTube land. Logan Albright coming at you with yet another book review for your viewing pleasure. As those of you who have been watching my channel for the last few months know, I've been on a bit of a Clive Barker kick. I first read The Hellbound Heart, which I thought was an excellent thriller, wonderful book. The film Hellraiser is based on it. You can watch my review of that. I thought it was fantastic. So that kind of launched me into the world of Clive Barker. I then read Weave World, which is much longer and not quite as good, but still an excellent kind of fantasy, dark fantasy read. And so the most recent book that I picked up is Mr. Be Gone. And the reason I picked this one up was because it was the only one on the shelf at the used bookstore. So I didn't know anything about it, but I thought, I'm into Clive Barker. I'm enjoying his books. I'm going to read this one next. And it's got kind of an intimidating back cover copy on it. It talks about how this is a kind of forbidden book and a dark manuscript about demons, and that you shouldn't read it and you should burn this book. And actually, that's a big chunk of the book. The book is basically an autobiography written from a demon's point of view, and a large portion of the book is the demon exhorting you to put down the book, burn the book, destroy the book. You shouldn't read it. You'll go mad if you read it. He'll kill you if you read it. There's a lot of threats directed at the reader about not reading the book and destroying the book, which I am here to tell you is not true. I read the book and I am still alive, and I am not, as far as I can tell, mad. So you'll be okay in that regard. So it looks pretty serious from the cover, but it's actually quite a jokey book. At least it starts that way. The beginning is all about this demon who inadvertently is drawn out of hell and enters the world of mortals. And it reads a little bit like a Neil Gaiman book, or maybe a Terry Pratchett book, talking about these like the angels and demons in sort of a jokey fashion. And I was initially not that into it because it's not, while it is written in sort of a jokey tone, it's not really funny. Like, there's not comedy in there. It's just kind of a lighthearted and not very serious tone of writing. And I wasn't really that invested in it, and I didn't know what I was supposed to be getting out of it. So I was initially a little bit disappointed, but actually it kind of won me over towards the end, because while it starts off quite jokey, it ends up having some quite serious themes and some pretty heavy philosophical questions or problems that it poses to the reader. And I found it actually quite emotional at the end too, which is surprising. I wouldn't have expected this from a Clive Barker book. And one of the quotes on the cover from a newspaper a review says that it's he never fails to surprise, and that he always is reinventing himself and doing different things. And I think that's really true, because I initially thought this was going to be just kind of a light comedy book about demons. It really isn't that. It starts off that way, but it's not how it finishes, which surprised me. I didn't see it coming, and I quite enjoyed the ending. I guess fundamentally I would say it's a book about paradoxes and duality, which sounds pretty heavy for a book of this kind. It's not too heavy, but it does have those themes in there, and there's a number of them running through it, which I kind of picked up on as I read it. The biggest one is the idea of love that is transformed into hate. How love makes the world go round, and we always have these love stories about, this lovey-dovey, fluffy, light, happy, joyous feeling that love is. Barker kind of explores the dark side of love, and I think he does that in The Hellbound Heart as well, very effectively. And here you see a love that is sort of not returned, and that drives someone towards intense emotion that transforms from a positive emotion to a negative emotion over the course of time. That's a big theme of the book, and that's just one piece of the duality that kind of runs throughout the whole thing. Another aspect of it is the power of words and the power of language and the power of books. And you kind of see how words are very powerful, important things, but like anything powerful, they can be used both positively and negatively. They can be used to free, they can be used to liberate, they can be used to imprison and enslave, they can be used for good, they can be used for evil. And then this is all sort of brought together in this symbolic war between heaven and hell, between angels and demons, between good and evil, which carries on the duality theme and talks about how various things can be used for either light or darkness in the service of either good or evil. Another theme in the book is fire. Fire figures very prominently in the book, and again, it sort of shows how fire is a very destructive instrument of pain, an instrument of destruction, and it can be a very terrible thing, but at the same time, fire can be used as an instrument of liberation. And the demon talks about that in his pleas for you to burn the book. He wants you to burn it. He wants you to destroy it by fire through an act of kind of purification and ending of suffering. So fire, like the power of words, like the power of love, anything powerful has this duality to it. It has this paradoxical use where it can be used for either good or evil. It can be both good and evil at the same time. And it can be both liberating and enslaving at the same time. And I think that's sort of the major theme of the book, which is very fascinating to me because, like I said, it starts off quite lighthearted, and then it gets a lot heavier and a lot more philosophical and a lot more emotional as the book travels along. The other aspect of this that's different from Pratchett and Gaiman is that Barker has a flair for the gruesome that he likes to insert into these things. He's fundamentally a horror novel writer, and so there's quite a lot of gruesome imagery that you wouldn't find in either of those writers, where he describes in very graphic detail, the process of death or destruction or disfigurement, things of that nature. So if you're a horror fan and you like that kind of imagery, Barker has plenty of that on display. So there's a bit of a nastiness to the book in that regard. Not only does it have kind of brutal imagery in it, it also has kind of brutal emotional content in it when it comes to this aspect of love being turned into hatred and bitterness, and this pathos where the main character is fundamentally a minor, pretty powerless demon, but he has this desire to be more than he is. He has this desire to become this ultra-powerful agent of destruction who just wreaks havoc and carries out these strong emotions that he has. He has these strong feelings of abandonment and disillusionment and hatred, and he wants to manifest those in his own power. But he's ultimately not a very powerful figure and can't really do very much about it. So there's a lot of pathos there in that book. And so it really does have a lot of layers, and it's quite a subtle book, which I thought was pretty interesting. My main criticism of it, I guess, is that the main character, the narrator, is not a particularly sympathetic character. Not only is he a demon who thinks nothing of committing horrible acts of murder and defilement and things of that nature, you don't really get into his character deep enough to really sympathize with him as a person, as a character. So I found it a little bit hard to connect with him, even though when it gets into the more emotional parts and you're starting to feel the more profound themes in the book coming to the surface. I think more could have been done to bring that character to life and to make you empathize with that character, he's not especially sympathetic or empathetic in this book. You really have a hard time putting yourself in his place. So I think that the emotional content of the book was somewhat tampered and muted by the fact that you can't really get into the character's shoes in that regard. But overall, a surprising book, a book that had more in it than I was expecting for a short, somewhat lighthearted book that at least started off in a lighthearted fashion. I really wasn't expecting that. So Clive Barker does continue to surprise. Each one of his books has been very different from the others I've read. I want to continue exploring his bibliography, see what else he's done. I know there's a lot of other books that are highly regarded by him, and so I want to check those out as well. So if you have recommendations of the next Clive Barker book I should read, please post them in the comments, and I'll get to it as soon as I can. I'm currently in the middle of a lot of very thick, heavy books that are taking me a long time to read, so I'm trying to intersperse those with a few quicker reads that I can then talk about on this channel while I finish off those weightier tomes. So feel free to recommend others for me to dive into. Until next time, I've been Logan Albright. I've been your humble host. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. And be sure, if you like this video, to subscribe to the channel, give it a thumbs up. It'll help it reach a lot more people. And I'll be back next week with another book review. Thanks.